spring cleaning. I'm in trouble. I've gone and deliberately set myself a sermon topic that I know nothing about, that I don't practice with any regularity. I suppose it was the vain hope that if I had to preach about it, I would get around to doing some of it. Well, it did sort of work. I have done some. The way cleaning always gets done around our house. We invite guests, and then we have to do minimal cleaning in the common areas. It was Easter this week, and I brought out these cute paper-mache bunnies playing the fiddle and accordion. I forgot to bring them to church. They're very cute. The dust bunnies, on the other hand, are a little short of disgusting. A friend of mine posted a picture on Facebook of 2 dust bunnies with Easter bunny ears. It was not very cute. But we're all different. I once did a eulogy for a member of this congregation, which started with the observation that he was a person who knew how many pencils he had. Those who have watched me in action at this church know that I am, if anything, the polar opposite. There are things I am fussy about, but in general I pursue stimulation a lot more than I pursue calm. And I tolerate clutter, which is why I so seldom get around to doing anything about it. I am on E.B. White's wavelength when he said, I get up every morning determined to both change the world and have one hell of a good time. Sometimes this makes planning my day difficult. It is difficult to know what to say to all of you because I suspect that you are not only very diverse on the scale of orderliness, but also on the aesthetic curve. I realized this a few years ago when we had the debate over the Universalist windows. Some of us cherish the simplicity of this meeting house, a kind of Puritan sparseness inherited from our New England forebears. In fact, some of my historical research revealed that the original meeting houses on Cape Cod had no pews, only a few backless benches, and were lucky if they had a window or two. But others among us are more rococo. They would not mind it if there was a little more richness or texture or color. And domestically, some people will think the ideal house is one that looks as empty as possible. They will follow the aesthetic of the great architect Mies van der Rohe, who said, less is more. It rhymes with Mies van der Rohe, less is more. Others will want every available space on a counter or wall to be occupied by an object of interest. They think less is a bore. I celebrate the diversity of styles, so the spare style is easier to value. A Wikipedia article on spring cleaning advises that the custom of cleaning out one's house in the springtime in northern climates arose because spring was when you could open windows and doors. In the days before vacuum cleaners, the wind could be used as a cleaning tool. You needed to choose just the right time, when the wind is strong enough to do some good against the mold and must, and before the bugs get active. Of course, these brisk days, if you leave your windows and doors open for very long, your furnace will crank up trying to heat the whole outdoors, so it's a good idea to lower the thermostat. If you're going to try this today, then you can turn it back up when you close your windows. Spring cleaning, it seems to me, has a strong spiritual aspect. Some of us may have enough discipline to do a thorough cleaning, unpacking and repacking all the storage areas, and washing down the walls, and sending the slipcovers and drapes to the cleaners, even though we hate doing it. Others of us genuinely enjoy, really get into the task, and still others of us will try to trick ourselves into enjoying it. One technique is to envision the beautiful house you want to end up with. If you can keep that vision in your mind, it might motivate you in your task. We can dream of Heracles from Greek mythology. That's Hercules in Latin. Heracles was assigned a series of impossible tasks, and one of them was to clean out the Augean stables. Augeas was a rich man, the king of Elis, and he had over 1,000 head of cattle, and his stables had never been cleaned out. On top of that, the livestock were immortal, and each produced enormous quantities of dung. You can imagine the sight. You can imagine the smell. Heracles' task was to clean out the stables in one day. He solved the problem by diverting two rivers, Appius and Peneus, through the stables to wash out the filth. Clever guy, that Heracles, but almost too clever because Aegeus refused to pay him, and Heracles was forced to kill him. People like me who have trouble actually picking up the mop and getting started will dream of a nice global solution like Heracles found. I will warn you, though, that while it might work for the waste of immortal cattle, river water is probably not good for your electronic equipment or your stashes of unread magazines. I recall a line from a prayer I learned in my Episcopal childhood. Open wide the windows of my soul that I may see good in all things. This seems to me to be the best expression of the spiritual component of spring cleaning. What we want to be about is opening our eyes, seeing things in a new light. There's a whole world out there, and it's been there all winter, and there's a whole world in here. It's a kind of paradox to do spring cleaning because spring is inherently messy. The orderliness, the spareness of the winter landscape, particularly the snowscape, gives way to the swirling variety of the springscape. It used to be called mud time, and some of us have a mud room in our houses, which is where some of the clutter tends to congregate. The theory is that the mud gets confined to the one room and does not spread over the newly vacuumed carpet in the living room. Now, one of the rewards of spring cleaning is that you sometimes retrieve valuable things that you hadn't thought of in years. Something I recently found expresses the relationship of what's out there to what's in here about spirituality to our clutter. An old sermon from 2010 about clutter. It was called Barnacles in the Basement. And since I don't mind plagiarizing from myself, here's a part of what I had to say 3 years ago. There are two logical ways to deal with clutter. One is the intake and one is the output. If we can restrict what's coming into the house, we can start to get a handle on it. But the real test comes in trying to throw stuff away. Here we have to learn to let go. The Taoist sage learns to let go of that which he no longer needs. The Buddha teaches that craving and clinging is the root of suffering. Easy to say, but hard to do. Why is letting go so hard? In order to trash our stuff, we have to understand why we treasure it. Jesus says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. We know we're not supposed to be materialistic. We come to church, we sing the Shaker hymn about simple gifts. We give great lip service to people who live in caves or sparsely furnished houses. The noble savage looms very large in the liberal value system. Are we actually so in love with our stuff itself that we can't bear to part with it? As I think about my own stuff, I don't think so. There are some objects which are precious to me, but they are a minuscule percentage of the stuff I actually have. If my house were on fire and my loved ones had escaped, I could rescue the things I care about in about 2 armfuls. I'd hardly get singed. I think most of us hold on to stuff for other reasons, and that is explored by a passage from an article I read in an AARP magazine about the accumulation of stuff, particularly by older folks. It was copied by our late and sorely missed Chuck Chestnut and sent around to his children. And he put the original in his funeral file so that I could read it at his memorial service, which I did. Chuck was well aware of his own stuff problem. The author of the article has this to say about cleaning out his parents' house, preparing to move them. Quote, I expected that the chore of emptying it would be just that, a chore, slow and grimy and unpleasant. But there were unexpected difficulties. Discarding even the most innocuous pieces of junk from the garage, a half-empty propane tank, a stack of catalogs, full jars of paint, and weed killer, seemed strangely painful to my parents. What I didn't understand until it was much too late was that the objects going out the door were not objects at all. Often the items that had been used the least were the hardest to throw out. symbolizing as they did not fond memory, but never tapped potential. They were, as my father said while I hauled off a nearly new portable gas grill, artifacts of an unused life. Unquote. This is what we hold on to. Not the objects which represent our past, but the objects which represent our unfulfilled plans for the future. To throw them out is to die a little prematurely, to have a funeral for the scheme that each object represents. Or from an article on hoarding in an issue of the online magazine Salon a few years ago, quote, "Our inability to get rid of certain things is sometimes tied to our hesitation to give up on some idea of ourselves. I might still be a size 4 someday," says the 40-year-old size 8 mother. "I might still train for a marathon following this program in this 1998 issue of Runner's World magazine. I might still learn something from my old philosophy books from college. I might still break out my old acrylic paints and read all of these back issues of the New Yorker. We all want to feel that our lives are filled with endless possibilities, that we have all the time in the world. Hoarding can be a way of denying that there's an end point to your timeline or boundaries around your opportunities," unquote. Spring cleaning of the house, my friends, might have to be preceded by some spring cleaning of the soul. With the Buddha's noble truth that the root of dukkha, or suffering, or unsatisfactoriness, is craving and clinging, we can try with each object we encounter to ask ourselves if we're clinging to a future in which this object might come into play, and we can then ask ourselves whether we might have a happier future if we could get all such objects taken to the thrift shop or otherwise out from underfoot. In the 14th century, Dante's Inferno depicts 2 types of people in the 4th circle of hell: hoarders and wasters. These move perpetually around the circle, shouting at each other, "Why do you hoard? Why do you waste?" We may gather from this picture that in his day both were considered equivalent sins, and there was no way they were reconciled. A 2-sided argument never resolved. Open wide the windows of our souls. Let us understand our attachment to objects. Let us also understand our guilt feelings and not be overwhelmed by them. Everybody has them. Everybody feels bad because the house is too dirty, even if it is spotless. Just as your friend with the perfect figure, the figure to die for, thinks that she's fat. You can wallow in your guilt. That's a choice you can make. Or you can laugh at your guilt feelings and try to take each day at a time. Heracles only had a day to work. You can give yourself more time. You can break down the Augean stables into mini cleaning projects so that the whole doesn't seem so scary. You might not even have a river handy to your house. In the end, a certain amount of spring cleaning may be good for the soul. The little stuff moving I've done this week, my guests, have made me feel more at home. But our days stretch out of us in a finite number, and few of us want to have a clean house as one of our life accomplishments. Well, I don't know that. I can just speak for myself. I don't want a gravestone that says, "Here lies Edmund Robinson, he finally got his house cleaned." When we open wide the windows of our souls, we will see many things worth doing besides cleaning house. Open the windows of our souls. I went rooting around the internet for the origin of this phrase and discovered it was in a marvelous poem by the great Quaker poet John Greenleaf Whittier called My Song, which says many of the things I've been trying to say here. It's an interesting coincidence that 2 verses of the poem actually make up hymn number 9 in our hymnal, which is rarely sung, but which we sang a few weeks ago, and I used as the opening words this morning. The entire work is a lovely poem for April. And as we are contemplating our mortality and the beauty all around us, which calls us to live in the present, no longer forward or behind, and since it is National Poetry Month, I will leave you with this whole poem, My Song by John Greenleaf Whittier. I mourn no more my vanished years, beneath a tender rain, an April rain of smiles and tears, my heart is young again. The west winds blow, and singing low, I hear the glad streams run. The windows of my soul I throw wide open to the sun. No longer forward nor behind, I look in hope or fear, but grateful take the good I find, the best of now and here. I'll plow no more a desert land to harvest weed and tear. The manna dropping from God's hand rebukes my painful care. I break my pilgrim staff, I lay aside the toiling oar. The angel sought so far away, I welcome at my door. The airs of spring may never play among the ripening corn, nor freshness of the flowers of May blow through the autumn morn. Yet shall the blue-eyed gentian look through fringed lids to heaven, and the pale aster in the brook shall see its image given. The woods shall wear their robes of praise, the south wind softly sigh, and sweet calm days in golden haze melt down the amber sky. Not less shall man, deed, and word rebuke an age of wrong. The graven flowers that wreath the sword make not the blade less strong. But smiting hands shall learn to heal, to build as to destroy, nor less my heart for others feel, that I the more enjoy. All as God's wills, who wisely heeds to give or to withhold, and knoweth more of all my needs than all my prayers have told. Enough that blessings undeserved have marked my erring track, that wheresoe'er my feet have swerved, his chastening turned me back. That more and more a providence of love is understood, making the springs of time and sense sweet with eternal good. That death seems but a covered way, which opens into light, wherein no blinded child can stray beyond the Father's sight. That care and trail at last, through memory's sunset air, like mountain ranges overpassed, in purple distance fair. That all the jarring notes of life seem blending in a song, and all the angles of its strife slow rounding into calm. And so the shadows fall apart, and so the west winds play, and all the windows of my heart I open.